Okay, cool. Good
All
deal.
right.
Well, yeah, we'll just jump in. It's great to meet you all. I'll introduce myself quickly. Jason will do the same. So, and we're good friends. We've been working together for many, many years, including on a previous startup. But for purpose of today, I'm Brandon. I'm the co-founder of an app called Uncat, which many of you may already be familiar with, in which case, fantastic. If you're not, I'll be happy to show a brief demo of it later. As you would expect, it's short for uncategorized transactions. So that's our claim to fame, is that we help firms to uh, fix those uncategorized transactions with their clients, right? Find out what all those Amazon, Target, Costco, Home Depot, Lowe's expenses and Venmo, Cash App, um, Stripe, Square, etc. deposits are for. Get that information back from clients so that you can categorize and sync back into QuickBooks or Xero and close the books. We also now handle receipts and a bunch of other cool stuff that I'll show you during the demo. But we've been doing it for just over 5 years, and have had a chance to work with thousands of firms and tens of thousands of clients. And so, yeah, thrilled to be here and do a webinar with Jason. Jason, you want to introduce yourself too, and then we'll jump into the
Sure.
content.
Yep. I'm Jason Hubbard. I'm founder and CEO of Demand Magic. We do growth marketing services for B2B SaaS companies like Uncat and including Uncat. Cut my teeth with Brandon way back in the day with Serious Insight, where we literally worked shoulder to shoulder for 6 years. And so, whenever he tapped me to come in and start doing some stuff with Uncat again, it was super exciting to get to work with him again because he's a lot of fun to work with.
Awesome.
All
Well,
right.
I'm reviewing the webinar chat because I hadn't had a chance to scroll down yet, and you do have competition because Glenny said he's in DR. So that's, I mean, hey, pretty cool. You guys have chosen some awesome places to hang out for a Zoom call today, and some good flavors too. Terry's with butter pecan in Central Illinois. I've got some family in Peoria, Caterpillar country. And yeah, Jennifer, great point. I have not bicycled in Moab before. I mean, it's world famous, obviously, and I would love to get my mountain bike out there. So it's on the list. As Jason knows, and I'll have a tendency to hijack a good Zoom call from time to time. My famous bicycling story from 2 years ago, I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee, is I collided at high speed with a black bear. And that's now become like a calling card cycling story for me. So the most popular question is the bear okay? The bear, I think, was fine. It ran off. I was not fine, so I got to have an express trip to the ER, but I'm fine now. So yes, I'm one of the rare people that's hit a bear on a bike. Um,
Yeah, I'll
anyway,
never forget when you told me that one. We were trying to meet for something. You're like, "Yeah, I can't make the meeting. I broke my leg. I hit a bear on a bike." I was like, "You what?"
I'll catch up with you later. So yeah, we're all whole now, and yeah, here to talk about, and and Jason and his team did a lot of the lifting on this. Um, just kind of looking into some of the growth strategies that matter these days for firms, and of course, we see this across the firms that we work with in Uncat. So I'm happy to take this one, Jason, unless you want to jump in and start.
Yeah, I mean, I can sort of lay it out and then let you run with it. But I
That'd be
mean,
great.
obviously, this is shifting rapidly, and I would argue with with AI taking an increasing role, it's forcing delivery of all services to really shift from a very narrowly defined potential scope of, hey, we just do this one thing, to becoming more holistically a partner and delivering results further down than just, hey, I took care of this task for you. And so I think the companies that and firms that are going to be really effective are the ones that are going to embrace that and figure out how to do that and do that well. And the ones that are going to struggle are the ones that are going to remain focused on, hey, we just do this one task for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
100%. I mean, I think, what's interesting when we talk with our clients, and we've run some surveys over the last couple of years about this, like, hey, the value of our app or any technology for that matter, what's it adding to your firm? And frequently it's saving time. And it's like, okay, great. What do you do with the saved time, right? You could do anything with it. Time's fungible. So you could take a longer vacation. You could do advisory services for more clients, kind of higher value services. That's a pretty popular answer. The most popular thing that firms have done the last few years with save time is add more clients, because there's such high demand for excellent accounting and bookkeeping services that if you're able to use tech, including AI, good apps, improved workflow, what most firms are doing is it gives them the ability to serve more clients with the same cost. And so as a result, you're increasing your revenue and you're also increasing your bottom line profit, which makes for a great business proposition for tech.
Yep. Yep.
But yeah, that's what we've seen over the past couple of years, which is it's great to be part of a growing sector.
Yeah, and I think those go hand in hand. The adding of more clients and becoming more efficient in order to be able to support them, also translates into a better user client experience. Because if you're efficient, it means that you're being efficient with their time and what you're asking of them, and that's appreciated and recognized, especially whenever it causes you to also deliver a better service to them. And so getting more sophisticated, leveraging the right tech and stuff like that pays dividends in multiple different arenas. So, talking to that, automate, optimize. That's the way you free up more time. That's also how you deliver those better, services to your clients, where they're not asked to do so much, and you're not doing so much in painful ways. But what are some of the best ways that you've seen, Uncat customers, trying to implement this, Brandon?
Yeah, I mean, I think looking at it from the Uncat perspective and also just from a general application perspective, I usually just start with the question of, is a computer good at this type of thing? And what a computer tends to be pretty good at is like syncing data from point A to point B. And so the sync engine behind Uncat is a really robust part of our platform that essentially looks for uncategorized transactions in real time and brings them into Uncat so that your clients can update them. And that is superior to sort of previous tech, which is to say exporting a spreadsheet. Spreadsheets are awesome. They're very powerful. They're not typically great at keeping data in sync. They're not really good at sharing or version control or permissions. It just gets really hard to keep track of that. And so it's beneficial to have a web app like Uncat to be able to run that in the background. So that would be an example of, is a computer good at doing this versus do I, as the human, want to rely on myself to go in every week or every month, manually run an export, send it to the client, remember to remind the client, chase them down until I get the information back. That's all a rhetorical, right? That's why we built the app to begin with, is because my co-founder Adam experienced that exact problem in his firm and wanted to solve for it. So yes, if you can identify things where it's like, maybe it's not your favorite thing to do, that always helps. But also if it's just taking an inordinate amount of time and it seems to be something that would be easily replaced with automation, then it's usually worth looking into.
Yeah. The other one, and I think it's the flavor of what you're talking about, is asking yourself, is what I'm doing actually providing value add?
Right.
Is that, and certainly trying to just harass somebody to get you something that you need is not going to be typically value add. It may be required to do what you need to do, provide the value add, but that in and of itself is not value add.
Right.
Cool. So then what do you do with that additional time? How do you actually leverage that in a way that's going to allow you to grow? We already talked about adding net new clients. That, of course, is the default way to do that. But I think the one that doesn't get enough time or attention is expanding what you're offering your existing clients. Because, something you and I know is so incredibly well in the SaaS space, Brandon. It costs so much more to bring in a new customer than it
Oh
does
yeah.
to keep the current customer happy, and especially if you're able to then expand and grow your revenue from those existing customers.
Yeah, I mean, I think of this as kind of the the sharp opposite side of the same question we asked in slide one, which is to say, is technology good at this? And if so, not only can I use it to be better, but someone else could use it to eat my lunch. And so if another firm or if another piece of technology, another offering can do the same activity but do it faster in a more automated way, then that customer is maybe at risk. If you're providing the high level services like Jason's describing, where it's very relational, there's unique insight, there's special strategic advice involved in it. That tends to be difficult for automation and tech to replace. And so now you become indispensable for the client. And that's a client that's going to stick around probably for the long haul, right? For the life of the business. And so opening
Yep.
up some of the time to do those higher value advisory type services. And this is a theme that Intuit and Xero at both of their conferences last year spent a lot of time on in sessions was focused on.
Yeah, yeah, and I mean, I was actually reading something the other day about everything that's coming down the pipe with AI, or we're already starting to wrestle with some, and they're saying the arguably the number one thing that AI is not, at least not in the short term, going to be effective at replacing are relationships. And let's face it, whenever you're offering a technical service like the firms that we're talking to are offering, that relationship's important. They want to be able to trust. They want to be able to understand. They want to know that they're understood, and that So building these relationships with these higher end offerings is one of the most effective ways of doing it. With the double impact of, hey, you can charge more.
Bonus.
And right along that, strengthen those client relationships. So, that can come from the type of services that you're offering, but it also, has a lot to do with how you're actually engaging with those clients. And so, what are some of the most effective things that you've seen firms doing on this front?
Yeah, I mean, I think, and this even taps back into when Jason and I previously worked together in a company. One of the speakers that we had a chance to see in books we had a chance to read was one called Giftology, which I recommend. I mean, it's about gifting, but it's also about client relationships in general, and has to do with some of the kind of the non-traditional advice that the author John Ruhlin shared in the book that struck me when I first read it and first got to hear him speak, was the notion of, hey, you don't want to necessarily give a gift with your logo on it. You want to give them a gift with their name on it, because it's really about them. And don't give it during a traditional gift giving season. Give it when it's least expected, so that it really makes that impact. And I was like, oh, wow, that's totally not what I've done, right? Like, I've stamped my logo on everything and ship it out during a holiday or something. And so it caused us to pause and think about, hey, how do we really make an impression with our clients? So I think, a book like Giftology is great. Unreasonable Hospitality has a lot of similar themes, and is a book that's been recommended a lot recently in some of the events that I've been to. And so I think really thinking about, a lot of this kind of boils down for long ago, like, golden rule stuff, right? How do you enjoy being treated as a customer? Because we're customers of lots of things, right? All of us are. And then how can we borrow some of the things that are our favorites and translate those out to our customers that we serve?
Yeah, I think those are all great. Another thing that I focus on, obviously, on the demand gen side of things, is what do those interactions look and feel like? And so friction is something that you almost always want to reduce as much as humanly possible if you can't eliminate it. And so if your interactions are happening in a way where there's a lot of friction, there's a lot of effort around trying to achieve whatever it is you're trying to get to as the end result, then that should immediately jump out at you as an area to focus on and figure out, hey, how can we do this better? How can we do this more efficiently, effectively? Because it both impacts the experience that your clients have, it impacts the likelihood you can actually get the thing done you're trying to get done. It also wildly impacts the efficiency of your firm internally, and your ability to be able to go and do these other things we're talking about.
Yep.
All right. This one's near and dear to my heart, obviously, leverage marketing and branding. And so, this goes hand in hand with what, the next one that's going to come up out of this. But, yeah, uh, when you do things well, talk about it, make sure people know you did it well.
Yeah, no, that's part of it. And something that is important for our brand, and I like to see when other brands do it, because it gives me inspiration, is to have fun. We love showing up at Intuit Connect with a big booth with a giant cat on it, and giving away little Beanie Baby cats, and really embracing the cat theme of Uncat. And what we found is that our customers appreciate the sense of humor, right? Yes, uncategorized transactions are super awesome, and we love fixing them. But more importantly, it's we like embracing a good cat meme. And of course, lots of our customers have cats, and they like to tag us on social with pictures of their cats. And so it just makes it fun. So we get to choose, right, what we want to represent as firms, or in our case, as a vendor, as an app company. And part of our brand promise is that, if you engage with Uncat, it's going to be an easy app to use, and we're also going to have fun while we do it.
Looks like to be the new video that we just finished. I think I counted nearly a dozen cat puns in it.
Yes. No. Yeah. Get ready for the new video coming out later this week. You're gonna love it. We incorporated as many possible puns as possible related to cats.
I was thoroughly impressed.
Yeah, that's
Um,
solid.
so this is one that obviously your partner Jared deals with a lot. Cybersecurity compliance. And this is one where you can't really afford to get it wrong, right?
Yeah, and I interestingly, because I just saw Helena, hi Helena, um, uh, type in, and we got to spend some time together at last Intuit Connect because she came by the booth, so she knows exactly about the cats I'm talking about, and brought us some amazing cookies from Canada. So it was like super awesome conference for us. But her question in the chat had to do with, hey, where do we see advisory going this year? So let's say 2025. I think it's a perfect time to answer that question showing this slide, because I think that there's a lot of value to be added when, if you're an accountant or a bookkeeper and you're providing advice that's extremely valuable, it dovetails with what you do, but it's not necessarily expected. And so, I don't, most clients aren't necessarily hiring uh, a bookkeeper thinking, hey, this is where I'm going to go to get great cybersecurity and advice. But if you can provide it, it's like, wow, that's above and beyond. I didn't expect it, but of course I should be doing it. Of course it's super important and useful. And yes, it is related to compliance, and it is going to help make sure that my books are clean and that I'm auditable or audit proof or preventing audits, and all the good things that come with it. So, yeah, in my view, I think it's like the more things that firms can do to add value that's complementary, but not necessarily even expected. So, which is to say, hey, we're going to do awesome with the things you would expect us to do, and bonus, here's some great cybersecurity advice with the right referrals to the right vendors, et cetera. And we're going to help streamline all that. Here's some good, dovetail. It's not like legal advice as if you're an attorney, but just sort of, hey, here's bridging into the legal realm, and we can provide you with some good avenues to getting the right representation if and when you need it. Here's some advice on how to use tech in general that's not even touching accounting per se in the firm. I think all those things are ways to differentiate from competitor firms, certainly, but also from, the big technology vendors that are also providing solutions out there saying, hey, you can just do everything in us. You don't even need an outside professional. And it's like, no, I get too much value from my outside professional. I can't possibly consider dropping it because it's something that I can't get from just a pure tech platform.
Yeah, I mean, what you're talking about there, of course, is it's table stakes that you have to be secure. Like if you get hacked, if you have somebody get in, and that can jeopardize your clients, your entire client base, your entire business. And so table stakes, you got to make sure that your stuff is logged down, all of that stuff. But that's exactly like table stakes sounds. So that's something everybody expects and has to have happen.
Right.
Going above and beyond, showing that you have expertise in that, all of that stuff, can be valuable to your clients, but also helps reassure those clients that you actually know what you're doing when it comes to this, and that, because everybody's going to say they're secure. But are you really secure? Because obviously, plenty of firms continue to get hacked and have problems, and so demonstrating that you've got that competence and expertise, goes a long way, both to providing, additional unexpected value, but also legitimizing your claims that, yeah, we're as secure as they get. Because if you don't know how to actually talk about it, explain it, and don't have any advice you could offer on that front, it's going to be questionable to your clients to what degree you're actually able to live up to that claim.
Right.
All right, this is the one that goes hand in hand with the one 2 slides back about the marketing piece. But marketing, getting visibility into it, and what you do from a pricing standpoint is incredibly critical. And it's where, if you're not doing the stuff on the positioning and marketing side, it's going to be a whole lot easier to fall into the trap of trying to offer the lowest price out there, which can be problematic for all kinds of reasons. You want to talk through those?
Yeah, briefly. I mean, I think you hit the highlights, but I think, something that I learned at the previous company that Jason and I ran is that pricing is really hard. And so it's a little bit flip, right? To read articles that are like, hey, just make sure you do your pricing properly. And then it's like, so how should I do it properly? And usually it's a combination of a lot of things, including personal preference, but also an analysis of like competing alternatives, a look at kind of what the status quo is, what's reasonably acceptable in the market, how are you differentiating, and do you, is the strategy to be higher priced and premium, right? Sort of like in your mind, like luxury brands, or are you trying to capture maybe more volume, in which case going a luxury brand and pricing route may not be the right fit for what you're trying to do. So there's a lot of moving parts. In a previous life, I've even commissioned studies from big consulting firms to try to figure out what the right pricing is. It's hard. Um, but I would just say to take a step back, look hard at it, have good, if you have an existing customer base, really have those one-on-one conversations with folks and try to understand from their perspective what value is being provided and what are they willing to do. So we at Uncat have had hundreds of those conversations, and it's been really helpful to us just to understand, hey, where do we fit in the market, and what's a reasonable, you know, uh, price point for our customers where we can inevitably provide more value than we're charging.
Yep, yep. I think especially for people offering a technical service, especially doubly so for one where there's a fiduciary aspect to it of like, hey, you're the expert, so you owe this to your client, your customer to make sure that you're doing things the right way. Like there's a lot of trust in that because the whole idea is you've got a gap in knowledge between your clients and you and your expertise, and so you've got to reassure them and be a part of that building of the relationship that you actually have that expertise and you can fill that gap for them and do that reliably and be trustworthy in that. And that's where I think in particular this type of a context, a lowest price strategy can bite you in the butt doing that because when was the last time like, hey, I've got a really risky surgery coming up, I want to go find the lowest cost surgeon out there. That usually doesn't make people feel warm and fuzzy about going and putting something in the hands of somebody else as the expert, and so it can literally be counterproductive in doing that. That's not to say like you want to go and be the most expensive one out there. Maybe you do, but being the cheapest one out there can be a self-defeating strategy. On top of it costing you money, leading to burnout, all of those other things here on the slide. But it can actually be counterproductive from a positioning standpoint where it turns potential clients off.
Yep.
Technology, of course, we're passionate about and how to leverage this, but obviously you got to get the tech stack right. How many times have we seen somebody go out and buy a piece of tech, or how many times have you or I bought a piece of tech and then wind up not actually implementing it or having it cause more trouble than it was worth?
Yeah, and I think the only thing I really want to highlight about the slide, everyone knows this intuitively, but I have to remind myself that the cost of tech, the cost of any product or service for that matter, is typically not the list price. It's the price of implementation, it's the price of training, it's the price of adoption, it's the opportunity cost that you could be using that time and money doing something else or using a competing solution, right? So it's always worth considering that. So one of the things that we at least try to do using Uncat as an example is it's a low cost app to begin with, but also it's a really simple app, right? So it doesn't require, hey, we're gonna have to spend weeks like training on this, figuring it out, doing an onboarding, scheduling time with various members of the team. This is an app that most folks come in, try, onboard in an afternoon. You can test it with a client in 5 minutes. So it's fast, and that we try to use that to our advantage versus like enterprise software. It's just going to be a much bigger lift. It's going to be more expensive and take longer. So it's always worth just keeping in back of your mind. Again, everyone kind of does this intuitively, but I try to focus on it of like what am I actually signing up for if I commit to using something.
Yep. Yeah, and the advice I give generally around a tech stack decision is start as specifically as possible with what it is you're trying to solve. So this kind of goes back to that friction point as an example. Okay, here's the point of friction that we have. That friction is caused because of X, Y, and Z. We think we can tackle Z if we do this and we solve for this thing. So now we're going to go out and shop for a piece of tech that solves for specifically that thing that we've identified that's a problem. I think way too many go out there and shop for something. It's like, hey, we broad-based have this issue. We haven't defined what that issue is or what the specific aspects or pieces of that is, and we're just going to go out and try and buy a solution, thinking if we slot it in, it's going to solve our problem. And if you don't have that level of specificity with it, then it's unlikely to be a successful implementation of the sort of attack. And I think that, as much as anything else, is the ultimate culprit or cause of failed tech performance onboarding, all of that stuff. All right. And then I love this one. I see another mistake I see people try do way too often is try and bite off too many things at once. If you implement, too many changes, you try and, boil the ocean, nothing's going to happen. You're not going to be effective with it. You're not even going to be able to measure whether you were effective or not, because now you've added so many different variables into the equation. You don't know what's driving what was effective, what wasn't, and to try and figure out, okay, where do we need to optimize this? What worked? What do we need to rip out? All of that stuff. So, uh, anything more on that one, Brandon?
No, I think that's straightforward. The only thing that resonates really is because you see this a lot at the conferences, right? Where it's well, for one thing, if you look at Intuit Connect, it's hosted in Vegas. So it's like there's a lot of flashing lights, there's a lot of stuff happening, and there's potential for overwhelm. And so it is good to narrow down and have, hey, here's the one thing I want to leave with, or here's two or three things that I want to really run with to advance my practice. And the other things are going to come after that. But it's good to stay focused because at the end of the day, um, the tech moves really fast. So it can be kind of overwhelming, but it's good to just zero in, adopt something, use it, take advantage of all of its benefits, and then add the next thing. Versus getting kind of like paralyzed by the speed and analyzing all the different options.
And then we'll hand it over to you for the demo part.
Sure. And I know for some of you, you may have budgeted just half an hour, in which case we'll be sure to circulate this later, and we can also send you the new video that we just did. But I will show you a brief snippet of Uncat so you get a gist of what we do. And thankfully, like I said before, so now I can prove it. It is an app that's easy to use and fast to demo. So let me share my screen. And I will jump over here. This is our homepage. So if you don't use Uncat already, and if you haven't been here before, uncat.com is where you can find us. If you click start a free trial, that's the best way to get started with Uncat, right? The best way to test software is to test software. It's a free trial. You don't have to put in a card or anything to get started. When you come here, you'll sign in with Intuit or with Xero, whatever your primary platform is. You can have clients on both platforms. We also support QuickBooks Desktop. So the easiest way to do, sign in with Intuit, put in your credentials. That'll create a connection between your books and our app. And then you can choose the first client that you want to connect. And when you do that, we'll walk you through the setup. And it's really easy. You're just choosing which accounts you want us to sync, which are typically uncategorized expense, ask my accountant, accounts like that. You can choose how far back you want to go. So if you have a cleanup client and you need to go back a little further, that's great. By default, we go back 3 months, and that covers most clients right out the gate. You can choose notification settings. So we recommend that we'll send out notifications automatically to your client every week. That's a really good cadence for the client to get used to responding to questions versus monthly, which is still an option, but sometimes the client will forget what they did 30 days ago, and then you're not getting good information back. So it makes it difficult to categorize transactions. When we notify the client, when we first invite them, when they get notified weekly, it always includes their magic link. So one of the keys for Uncat is we don't want to make it hard for your clients to use it. And so by putting a magic link in every communication, they just click the link, it takes them straight into Uncat, and they can provide answers to your questions. They don't have to log in, they don't have to remember a password. It's just click and go. These dashboard settings, this is the default. So this basically says when the client sees a transaction, they need to tell us what it was about, provide a description, and that'll sync to the description field in QuickBooks. And also optionally, if they have a receipt or some other supporting documentation, they can upload it. If you have a client that's a bit more sophisticated, let's say, they can categorize their own transactions, or you want them to provide a class or a location, etc. You can choose which fields that we sync over from QuickBooks, which ones are visible to the client, which ones you want them to be able to update, and which ones you want to require that they update. So it's very configurable depending on what you want to get back from a client. And then lastly, here's where you invite client users. Uncat's just $9 per client per month. Under each client, you can have as many users as you want. So here we've invited 2 users. So this was the admin user. That might be the owner or a founder or a controller. This second user has been invited, and we're assigning them to only see transactions that originated from their credit card. So this is a user that might be out in the field, and we want to ask them about certain transactions, but they don't really know what's happening at headquarters, but they should know what they're spending money on. So if it's uncategorized and if it came from their Visa card, they're going to see those transactions in their dashboard. So you can assign based on a source account or and or based on uncategorized account. So that's how you set up a client. Shouldn't take you more than about a minute. If you go to settings at the top, you'll see all the clients that you've connected to Uncat, and you'll see a list of your colleagues. So you can invite as many people in your firm as you want to. There's no additional cost for that either. So you can bring them in. A firm admin can control billing and assignments. Client admin can invite clients and update settings like the ones we just looked at. And a team member can update transactions in the dashboard. Lastly, and very importantly, what I should show you in settings is your ability to upload your own firm logo, change the color of the app to match your brand. That way, when your clients show up, you get a nice brand impression. They know they're in the right place. If I jump in to the dashboard, then one of the things that I want to take note of is you can see multiple clients on one screen, right? So when you get to the point of doing like a month-end close, rather than having 20 or 30 browser tabs open with each of the clients just to handle uncategorized transactions, you can come into Uncat and you can knock out client after client all from one screen, which is convenient. So here, if we look at the same client that we just set up in settings, if we go to transactions, you're going to see there's 10 uncategorized transactions here. The one highlighted means the client has updated it. So they went to Applebee's, they had a business dinner. That may be enough for us to go on and we can put it in meals and entertainment. If not, if we need some clarification, like, well, who did you eat with? Or why did you have this dinner? We can tap that in here and that'll send that clarifying question to the client. If the client's updated any transaction documents, like a receipt typically, they will be here. So we can see, here's the receipt, we can open it. It also has synced in automatically into QuickBooks and attached itself as an attachment to that transaction. You can filter the dashboard, you can sort, and when you're updating a transaction, if we go back to Applebee's, you can choose whether it's billable, tax, customer, class, location, obviously account. And when you make all those field updates and click save, it's all going to sync into QuickBooks. You can also select a transaction and do things like, oops, it looks like I'm sorting now, but you can click up here and split. You can click and split it by category or by class. You can also bulk update transactions by selecting a bunch of them and then choosing, for example, to apply the same customer at the same location to multiple at a time. All right, so that's the main dashboard where you're handling uncategorized transactions. Meanwhile, you can also ask the client requests, is what we call them. Ask them questions not related to a particular transaction. So, hey, can you send me a W-9 for a vendor, or a bank statement that hasn't synced into QuickBooks for whatever reason, or minutes for the last board meeting? So here you can ask for something from the client and you can require a response, an attachment, or both. And you can also set that up on a recurring schedule. So I want to ask for new W-9s once a month from this client, go, and we'll automatically send it out to them every month. And then the last thing I'll show you is the receipts tab. So this is where your client and you can upload receipts. These can be for any transaction. They don't have to be for uncategorized transactions. We've supported receipts for uncategorized for 5 years. This is a feature we added about a year ago, that a client can upload a receipt for any transaction. We will look across all of QuickBooks, try to identify a match. So they can upload from their computer. They can email it in by forwarding it to their custom Uncat email address. They can also text it to this number as long as their phone number is registered with Uncat. And then we will extract the relevant data from each receipt. So we'll look for the vendor, we'll look for the date, we'll look for the amount, and then we'll look for a matching transaction in QuickBooks. If we find it, we'll label it as matched. You can click to confirm it, click match, and it will sync into QuickBooks as an attachment. The second one has not identified a match yet. Maybe the client got ahead of it and we got the receipt before the transaction had reconciled in. That's fine. We can just be patient and wait. If it's not going to find a match, maybe it's a cash transaction. And so you can publish. You can create this transaction as an expense or a bill in QuickBooks, and it will take this receipt and match it in there as an attachment. So we really built this because our customers said, hey, the thing that you solve for uncategorized transactions, we have the same problem with receipts, which is to say we're having to chase clients for the information. And then when we finally get it back, they're sending us like 30 receipts in an email, and then we have to manually go and match them one by one ourselves. We don't want to do that work anymore. Can't you do it? And so we built this receipts module to handle it. And it's all built in. It's all Uncat's all one app. So you get the uncategorized transactions, you get the requests, and you get the receipts, and it keeps it pretty easy. So yeah, that's it. I kept the demo to about 10 minutes. Thank you all for sticking around. We can obviously go into more detail. So if you have questions, send them through my way by email. Happy to grab time with you. and show you a demo if you'd like. And of course, the best way is to jump in and start a trial of Uncat, and you can test it out live with a client. And that's
Awesome.
a wrap.
All right. Thanks everybody for joining. We'll kick out a recap email with the recording and all of that. And like Brendan said, fire in any questions that you have over anything.
Thanks, Jennifer. Thanks, everybody.